Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to explore what's called cognitive architecture. Now, before we start, let's be really clear. This is not about judging anyone's intelligence. Not at all. Think of this more like a journey into some very common, very human thought patterns that our brains can fall into. Patterns that can sometimes, get in the way of our own growth.
It all really starts with a question that, let's be honest, we've all asked ourselves at some point. You see it online, you see it at work, maybe you've even seen it in the mirror. How can someone be so incredibly sure of themselves, so confident, and yet be so wrong? Well, psychology actually gives us some fascinating clues.
All right, our first stop is a big one. It's a psychological concept you've probably heard thrown around before. It gets right to the heart of that misplaced confidence, and it's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect.
So what is this thing really? Well, at its core, it's a cognitive bias. And here's the tricky part. The skills you need to be good at something are the very same skills you need to recognize how good or bad you are at it. So if you don't have that basic knowledge, you literally don't have the tools to see your own mistakes. It's less about arrogance and more like having a genuine blind spot.
This chart just perfectly captures the irony of it all. Over on the left, you see folks with low skill, but wow, their perception of their own ability is through the roof. Some people call this Mount Stupid. Think about it like a brand new cook who makes one decent spaghetti dish and suddenly thinks they're a world-class chef. But on the right, the real experts are way more modest. Why? Because they know enough to realize just how much they don't know. A true master chef understands the vast universe of things they have yet to learn. Real expertise often comes with a dose of humility.
Okay, so overconfidence is one piece of the puzzle. But what happens when that overconfident person comes across a brand new idea that challenges their beliefs? Well, that brings us to our next cognitive pattern, the rigidity trap.
Cognitive rigidity is pretty much the exact opposite of being open-minded. It's when the brain just digs its heels in. It sees the world in these simple, stark terms. Things are either good or bad, right or wrong. There's no gray area, no room for nuance. So when new information comes along, it's not seen as a chance to learn, it's seen as a threat that needs to be shot down.
And you can really see the powerful contrast on this slide. On one side, you've got a closed loop. The world is simple, and anyone who disagrees is just plain wrong. But on the other side, cognitive flexibility opens the door to actual growth. It's the ability to hold two opposing ideas in your head at the same time and explore the space between them. That is where real learning happens. So, what happens when someone who's overconfident and rigid in their thinking actually fails? Do they stop and reevaluate? Often, not so much. Instead, they start playing the blame game. And that leads us directly to our third and final concept. This one is all about where you believe control comes from. Someone with an external locus of control genuinely feels like their life is being controlled by outside forces. A bad grade? That was the teacher's fault. Lost a job? It was the bad economy. A project failed? Well, the team was uncooperative. The cause is always out there, never in here.
Just look at the difference here. The person on the left is like a passenger in their own life, just reacting to things that happen to them. But the person on the right, they're in the driver's seat. They take responsibility, not to beat themselves up, but as a way to claim power over their own life and their own results. They focus on what they can actually control. And here's where it gets really dangerous, because it becomes a cycle. See, an event happens. Immediately, an external cause is found. Personal responsibility is totally avoided, which means the most important step gets missed: learning. If it's never your fault, you never have a reason to change your approach, and you're basically destined to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. So, let's bring these three big ideas together, because they aren't just isolated habits, right? They all weave together to create this powerful, self-reinforcing feedback loop that can keep us feeling really, really stuck. So, to quickly recap, we've seen how the Dunning-Kruger effect can create an illusion of expertise when there's none. We've explored how a mind can slam shut to new information through cognitive rigidity. And we've uncovered how the external locus of control just pushes blame outward, which totally prevents any kind of personal growth.
And I think this is the single most important takeaway from all of this. The whole point of understanding these things isn't to go around labeling other people. It's to recognize that these are shortcuts. They're defense mechanisms our brains can use. They are features of human thinking, not flaws in human character. Every single one of us can fall into these traps.
So what do we do with this?
Well, awareness is always the first step toward change. It's about turning that lens inward. So as you go about your week, which of these patterns will you look for in your own thinking? A moment of overconfidence? A split second where you're unwilling to consider another view? Or that quick instinct to blame someone else? Just noticing the pattern, that's the first and most powerful step to breaking it.